All right, folks, let's get started. So, welcome to our first webinar series. We have our first focus today on sharks and rays and the conservation and status in South Australia. My name is Adele. I'm actually part of the Friends of Gulf of St Vincent committee. We also have Kirsty Darliston, who's our treasurer. She's going to be helping host tonight's session. We also have Jeff, Robin, and Kylie, who have contributed to this exciting but much needed series. So, welcome tonight, and thank you for joining. All right, so obviously just a little bit of a brief introduction of who we are. So Friends of Gulf of St Vincent, we're a community group. Look, we obviously care about protecting the unique and special part of our coast and its amazing wildlife. So we run events focused on keeping our beaches and waters clean and supporting healthy ecosystems like seagrass, mangroves, marine life, and coastal habitats. So obviously everyone can enjoy our Gulf. Obviously we're going through a pretty hard time at the moment. Which is why we thought we might start with sharks and rays. So as part of this, we've decided to run a webinar series that obviously connects our industry, research, education, and community so everyone can play a vital role in our Gulf. We realised there was a massive gap in what was going on, and so we really wanted to try and connect everyone and make sure everyone was sort of on board. Our aims of this webinar series: we really want to try and achieve and increase awareness and understanding of what's happening in our Gulf scientifically as well, and having that correct information out there. We really wanted to equip community members with practical tools or steps that they can take in terms of protecting our amazing Gulf. And we also wanted to foster an ongoing discussion and collaboration within and outside our network. So it's really important that we keep these discussions going and it's not just sort of a once-off situation. Before we get formally started, we'd like to acknowledge the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of land and waters where we meet today. We recognise and respect their deep and ongoing connection to country, land, sea and sky, and the important roles these places continue to play in their culture, stories and identity. We also want to pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today from across South Australia and beyond. We appreciate that we're able to have these conversations, especially online in today's society. Just a brief code of conduct. Obviously, we want everyone to be respectful and inclusive. We want to remain professional. We want to have constructive participation, appropriate content. We are having a range of different researchers and industries present over this period of time. And so we do ask for privacy, and obviously we've got formal consent as well to obviously be able to share things, but please make sure that you're asking the speakers. And please follow obviously our moderator's guidance and things like that. All right, so tonight we've formally been introduced. We then have Madison Baker, who's a PhD from the University of Adelaide. So welcome, it's really exciting to have you here. We also have Chloe Roberts, who's also a PhD from Flinders University. Also very excited to have you here. I've never heard a lot about sharks and rays before, so I've lived up on the coast, so I'm actually really keen to hear so much more about this, as I'm sure so many of them are out there as well. We're then going to have a question and answer open forum with the presenters. So we'll have both presenters there and anyone can ask questions. If anyone feels like they're missing out or they have a question or can't quite speak up online, please pop it into the chat, and then at a later date we can obviously translate and transfer some of those questions as well. We did have a photo competition up and running as of late, but given the current climate along our coast, we are going to actually cancel this for now until we've obviously got something a little bit more positive to share with you. Obviously, it's a pretty hard time with what's happening along our coastline and pretty heartbreaking. So we understand that people probably haven't been to the beach probably lately or are posting pretty morbid things at the moment. So we'll rephrase that one and reconnect and see how we go with that long term. All right, first up, so we have Madison Baker. She is going to actually be presenting the reproduction, resilience and responsibility of our sharks and rays. Madison is a PhD student at the University of Adelaide, where her research focuses on understanding the reproductive life histories of sharks, when they reach sexual maturity and how often they reproduce across their lifetime. She is passionate about sharing this knowledge with the broader community through science communication, helping others appreciate the vital roles sharks and rays play in our oceans. Madison also enjoys engaging with the public on how we can responsibly coexist with these species, from shark awareness to sustainable fishing practices. Outside of research, you'll often find her exploring South Australia's beautiful temperate reefs while snorkeling. Over to you, Madison. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adele. Let me just share my screen. Bear with me.
We'll stop sharing.
Okay. Just making sure that is, yep, that should be working. Just gonna get rid of this. Cool. So thank you everyone for joining tonight. I'd like to thank the Friends of Gulf St Vincent group for extending an invitation to me this evening. As Adele said, my name is Madison Baker and I am currently a PhD student at the University of Adelaide, where my research focuses on reproduction of sharks and rays and improving our understanding of it. And that's what I'll go through a little bit about tonight. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the beautiful land and sea country of the Gulf of St Vincent. So I live and work on Kaurna country. The picture here is actually a paver that can be found in Tanyanga or Victoria Square in Adelaide, and it actually has the Kaurna word for shark on it. So I encourage you all to, next time you're in Victoria Square, try and find those pavers. They're underneath the big flagpoles. So as I said, my research focuses on reproduction, and no, it's not about how they do it, but more about their reproduction throughout their life. So this evening, I want to introduce you all to this concept of reproductive life history traits. I will then put this concept into context by looking at some iconic South Australian sharks and rays and what actually their reproductive traits are. We'll then go through why we need to know about these traits, and you'll see where they fall into management and conservation plans. And hopefully by the end, you'll have an understanding of how sharks and rays develop and survive and how we can make better decisions to protect their populations and ensure healthy oceans for generations to come. So let's get into it. So reproductive life history traits. So have you ever wondered why some animals produce, thousands of babies all at once, while others have just one or two and they spend a lot of time investing in raising them? So these differences are what we researchers like to call reproductive life history traits. So the patterns and strategies that species use to grow, survive, and reproduce. And every species has its own unique approach to reproduction, which has been shaped by their years of evolution. So these traits include how old an animal is when it first reproduces, how often it reproduces, how many offspring it has per cycle, and how much care parents actually invest into raising them. And together, these traits form a kind of survival strategy, helping the species continue over time in its particular environment. So in the context of sharks and rays, this is a group of animals, so elasmobranchs, that have existed for a very, very, very long time. They've survived through multiple mass extinctions. And in part, their success up until this point in time, unfortunately, has been the result of this group's, diverse reproductive modes. So how they actually produce their offspring. So sharks and rays produce offspring in quite a few different ways. So some are oviparous, meaning they actually lay eggs. So you may have seen those really cool corkscrew-shaped egg cases that wash up on our shores. Those are from Port Jackson sharks. And we actually have some sharks and rays that are viviparous, which means they are live-bearing. And there are quite a few different forms of viviparity, and these can be further broken down into how that mother actually nourishes her pups. Interesting fact here is mammals aren't the only ones that provide some form of milk to their young. Sharks actually do that too. So some sharks and rays also produce continuously. throughout their life cycle, while some actually only reproduce seasonally. And this can vary from every year to every 2 years to every 3 years in some cases. And because of this heavy maternal investment, sharks and rays are able to grow these relatively large and well-developed offspring, giving them their pups the best chance, best start to life. But this heavy maternal investment actually is costly and trades off against individual growth and survival. So what I say when I mean this is that sharks and rays, they have these conservative life history traits. So they have slow growth, they have quite long lifespans for some species. They can reach sexual maturity quite late in life. They have really long gestation periods, so they're pregnant for sometimes quite a while, and they only produce quite a few number of offspring. So it might actually surprise you that many sharks and rays are reproductively more similar to mammals, birds, and reptiles than to actually other fish. So they're more like you and me as people. So I'm just going to take you through now a few reproductive traits from a few South Australian icons that you might see around our waters to sort of put this into a bit of context. So white shark, we all know about this one. So this and I'll just let you know that these traits are based on the Australian populations. They do vary a bit around the world. But say the white shark, so males reach sexual maturity between 7 and 9 years, while females take that little bit longer, being mature at 12 to 17 years. We think, this is a big think, we don't actually know for sure, they reproduce every 2 to 3 years. They only have, 6 to 7 pups per cycle. We think their gestation period goes for about 18 months. And, they live for quite a long time, so 30 to 44 years, possibly longer. Another iconic species, so the beautiful southern eagle ray. So we don't actually know the age at which they reach sexual maturity, but you can see that the males do, they mature quite quicker than the females, and that's quite a big size. We don't actually know their reproductive frequency, and they do have 2 to 20 pups, averaging 6, and we don't actually know their gestation period, but if it's similar to other species of the same genus, we think it's about 6 to 12 months. And again, we don't unfortunately know their longevity just yet. School shark. So this is a species that was targeted quite a lot during the 1900s and for fishing. So they have quite slow life traits as well. So they reach sexual maturity for males between 8 and 10 years. Females, they take 12 to 16 years. So again, like us people. They reproduce every 2 to 3 years. They have 15 to 43 pups per cycle, but their gestation is 12 months long, and they live for a very long time, 50 to 60 years, which is quite impressive. Little southern fiddler ray, so they are a bit quicker with their life history traits. So males mature at 4 to 5 years, females later in life, 9 to 10 years. They typically reproduce annually. That might change though. They have 2 to 5 pups per cycle, and they have, about a 12-month gestation period. But within that gestation period, they actually stop the pups developing for a 7 to 8-month period. And then they live for 12 to 15 years, which is quite surprising. Gummy shark. So this is probably one of your faster lived species. So they mature quite quickly, males 3 to 5 years, females 4 to 6 years. They reproduce annually or biannually, and they have, averaging 14 pups per cycle, up to 50 sometimes. Gestation is 11 to 12 months long, and they live for about 16 years. So overall, it's quite a bit of variety, but generally sharks and rays in South Australia do display these sort of slow life history traits. And it's really important to understand these characteristics because these actually influence the dynamics of a population over time. So how it actually changes in size and structure. By understanding this is actually critical for ensuring a species capacity it has the capacity to continue reproducing and contribute to future generations. So is there actually enough mature females in that population to continue on? And we can use this knowledge for firstly determining extinction risk for species to look at their conservation prioritization. So all those traits that we sort of went through do feed into conservation assessments like the IUCN Red List, which sort of ranks species by their extinction risk. Species with these conservative life history characteristics are generally more susceptible to population declines, and therefore they do require more protection. So for sharks and rays, they live these slow lives. So once their numbers decline, recovery can actually take decades. Some shark and ray researchers say that even though we are trying to, or we are at the moment, bringing back these sort of populations or stabilizing them, we won't actually see their recovery in our lifetime, which is pretty crazy to think about. Secondly, we use this knowledge for fisheries management. So sharks and rays, they are fish, traded, consumed, and used. But by knowing things like age at which they start reproducing or how often they reproduce, we can set size and catch limits and seasonal closures that protect reproducing sharks and rays, giving them that chance to grow and contribute to their population. That's how we create sustainable populations. And just to contextualize this application of reproductive knowledge, let's just have a look at the new South Australian shark and ray rules, which came into effect at the end of last year. So a bit of background, prior to this, only 6 sharks and no rays actually had management restrictions in place in South Australia. Now all have some sort of limit of protection applied, and that's in order to improve and protect the populations of sharks and rays we have in South Australian waters. So we now have species listed as no take. Those are generally ones that are listed as critically endangered. For example, this southern dogfish, which is at the bottom left there, 3 up. So this species is quite susceptible to population declines because for females, they take 23 years to reach sexual maturity, which is a very long time. They also only have 1 to 2 pups, maybe every 3 years. So that's why they are prohibited. We now all have all sharks and rays have some sort of bag or boat limit applied. And we do have maximum or minimum size limits applied to species. So maximum size limits for some rays because, these large individuals represent those mature reproducing members of that population that we should be protecting. But good rules only work when they are backed by responsible action. And I know conversations about recreational fishing and conservation can sometimes feel a bit divided, but truth is both groups share common ground. So we, and I am saying we because I too am a recreational fisher, I like to catch my own fish. We all want healthy oceans. We want thriving wildlife and future generations to experience the same biodiversity we have been lucky enough to know. And both of the conservation and recreational fishers have a role to play in shark and ray conservation. So recreational fishers too can be powerful ocean stewards. We have some great community-led initiatives here in South Australia like Ozfish that is predominantly made up of recreational fishers. And we've seen, these different types of communities come together over these past few months, especially with this algal bloom happening in our gulfs. So in SA, we have this massive recreational fishing community. So I wanted to share some tips, mostly aimed at that community on how we can do our part for sharks and rays, taking into consideration those reproductive life histories that we now know about. So if you do choose to fish, You should be practicing catch and release for survival if you are not retaining your catch. Not just because sharks and rays are sentient, intelligent animals that should be treated humanely, the same as any other animal, but by minimizing harm and improving their post-release survival through responsible handling and gear choices, fishes can help reduce their mortality and support basically the long-term sustainability of these ecologically important but sensitive species. So some good guidelines to follow is know and follow the rules. So yeah, these rules were updated just within the past year. So I would recommend knowing about them, going and having a look, because a lot of people surprisingly don't actually know about them. The next three, so keeping the animal in the water and handling the animal with care, also reducing fight time. This is all about increasing your post-release survival, especially with this reducing the fight time on the line. So, but quite a few, if you were to catch, say, a pregnant female with sharks and rays, they will actually abort their young in response to the stress of being caught. One group in particular, so stingeries, they have about a 10 to 11 month gestation period, and they will actually commonly abort their young if they are caught and landed because of this stress. And if you think about it, they've just then lost 11 months of reproduction. And these species, if they are synchronous breeders, so meaning that they mate at certain times of the year, that means they've just lost a whole, basically, year. And they have to wait another year until they can be reproductive again. Be selective about the gear types that you use. So using circle hooks, which reduces gut hooking, so that plays back into the welfare of that animal and increasing post-release survival if you accidentally catch one. Take care of your environment. So clean up line and tackle, yours or you see laying around. Report your sightings. So iNaturalist, we've heard a lot about it in the past few months, which is excellent, but you can actually upload your catches or sightings to iNaturalist really at any time. There is a South Australian Shark Ray iNaturalist project going. So you can actually, if you come across something that's maybe a bit cryptic, definitely upload it there. It's an open database really for researchers to use. Tags, so probably Chloe will go through this, but Flinders University have a tagging program. So if you catch something and it has a tag on it, there'll generally be a contact information on there that you should take a picture of the animal and send that back off to whoever it came from, sending that information there. You can actually also report egg cases. So there's this really cool project called the Great Egg Case Hunt. So researchers are looking into egg cases of sharks and rays, and if you come across one, you snap it and you get the GPS location, and that goes to the researchers for them to use. You're basically doing the footwork for them, you're citizen scientists. And finally, spread the word. Help others understand and set an example for the younger fishers that we have in our community. Because as we now know, sharks and rays, they live these slow lives, and that means they're incredibly vulnerable to pressures. So once their numbers start declining, recovery can take decades. And that's why we need more than just rules. We need people who care, people who fish responsibly, and people who speak up, people who lead by example. So whether you're on the water or at the dinner table or in a classroom, you have a role to play in their conservation. And because conservation isn't just about, who uses the ocean, but it's how we care for it. And the choices we make will shape the ocean of our future actually inherits. So I hope you learned a little bit about shark and rays tonight. I have up here some resources that you might be interested in. These are mostly just websites. But if you're interested in learning a bit more about sharks and rays, sharks and rays in South Australia, or even just responsible fishing, these are some sort of good resources to look at. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. I'll hand back to you, Adele. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks, Madison. That was
Is that it?
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was really good. Thank you so much for that. I guess I just have one really quick question. You said something about responsible fishing, and the rules that were around them. So I also used to be a fisher, but I was completely deterred
Hmm.
because of the overfishing epidemic that's happening. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you were saying that there's some rules out there that we can abide by in terms of like the catch and release. And
Yeah.
whereabouts is that?
So you can look on, there is some resources on the PERSA
Okay.
website. Um, but yeah, there's the Australian Recreational Fishing Code of Practice that you can also look at. And there is actually the Sharks and Rays Guide to Safe and Responsible Fishing, which has some interesting, I guess, techniques on what to do and stuff like that. But yeah, those are some good ones to sort of look into, especially, if you're fishing and you accidentally catch, a stingray or something. It's
Mm.
good to have that knowledge on how to best handle, for your safety, but, for yeah, that animal's welfare too.
Yeah, cool. Okay, thank you for that. Let me go back to that one. All right, so next up we have Chloe Roberts. So Chloe is from Flinders University. She is a PhD candidate with the Southern Shark Ecology Group, focusing on the diet and movement of Australia's co-occurring sharks and rays. She's been working with Port Jackson sharks, southern eagle rays, fiddler rays, and smooth rays in South Australia just for a couple of years, assessing their space with acoustic telemetry and using blood and muscle samples to explore their diet in relation to anthropogenic activity. Over to you, Chloe.
Thank you very much. And I'll just share my screen. Okay, can you see that all good?
Yeah,
Great. Awesome. Okay, cool. So Madison gave a really good talk and introduced a lot of things really well. So thank you for that, Madison. Um, I'm going to talk a bit more about movement in particular of some sharks and rays in South Australia that I'm looking at. That's one of the chapters of my PhD that's I've been focusing on a lot these past few months. Sorry, is this going next? Cool. So like Madison introduced, sharks and rays are extremely diverse and they belong to a group of fish called chondrichthyans, and that basically contains all our sharks, rays, but also includes chimeras as well, which are these very interesting looking fish, also called ghost sharks. They evolved more than 400 million years ago, and they're really diverse. There's currently over 1,200 species described, and that number's always changing. There's always new species, new subspecies being identified. Despite this diversity, they are 1/3 of all of those animals are threatened with extinction of some sort, and that's largely related to overfishing. Like Madison said, a lot of sharks and rays are really vulnerable to overfishing because they have that slow growth rate and low reproductive output as well. So here in South Australia, we have quite a few species, around 70 or so. Is a bit hard to quantify because of the issues. My cat's trying to join in. It's a bit hard to quantify the exact number of animals here in South Australia, but around 70, and we have a really sort of broad range of different roles as well. So we've got some top predators, your iconic white shark in there, also the smooth hammerhead, and we get threshers here as well. We've got coastal generalist species like the bronze whaler and the gummy shark. Probably our most diverse group of sharks and rays are the coastal benthic species. They're the ones that are sort of feeding on the bottom, and they're occupying areas and habitats pretty close to the coastline. Things like your Port Jackson shark and your southern eagle ray, and lots of other rays and the wobbegong and other small sharks in that group as well. We also have quite a few deep water species as well, but obviously they're rarely sighted due to their very cryptic and deep habitats where they live. So within this diversity, they all play very unique and important roles in the environment. So big sharks like the white shark play important roles in connecting ecosystems because they travel across so many different habitats. They're connecting and transferring nutrients across all of those habitats. A lot of sharks and rays are scavengers, and that's a really important process in recycling nutrients in the environment and getting rid of waste. A lot of animals can modify their habitats. For example, those Port Jackson shark egg cases and other egg cases actually are really important microhabitats. So as you can see in that picture there's some little things growing on those eggs, which is now a little microhabitat for small things to colonize. In that video, hopefully you can see there's a southern eagle ray that is feeding, and one of the ways in which they feed is by pumping water into the sand to excavate the sand and any food that is hidden away. And basically that redistributes all the nutrients and food locked away in the sand for them and other animals in the environment. And it also leaves behind these big feeding pits, which are another example of a microhabitat for, small fish or crabs to find refuge in during the day. And lastly, probably their most direct and well-known impact is they mediate prey populations. So anything that they're eating regularly, they're keeping that population of prey in control. So my PhD and my work has been focusing a lot on Port Jackson sharks and southern eagle rays. These are two very, very common species sighted along South Australia. But despite how frequently sighted they are and how common they are, we really don't know a whole heap about their ecology and space use here in South Australia. So that's sort of what I was trying to look at with my PhD. So Port Jackson sharks elsewhere on the east coast, they've been found to undertake pretty big movements. This study on animals in Sydney actually found some individuals undertaking an annual migration of up to 600 kilometres south, and then they would return back, and they would do this every year. So that's really quite a big trek for a relatively small benthic shark to make. And then southern eagle rays, they've been studied in Coffin Bay, and they were found to basically leave the coast during winter and then come back in summer. And while it was a much smaller migration than those Port Jackson sharks, it's still evidence of a little bit of a migration correlated with season there. So I was sort of trying to explore if the ones on our metropolitan coast are maybe doing a similar thing or not. So to do that, I used acoustic telemetry. Basically, these little tags we attached to the animal, and these send out acoustic frequencies that are detected by receivers. We have to use this technology because satellites do not penetrate water, so we can't use satellite tags which are commonly used on white sharks and other big things like that. We have to use these ones because a southern eagle ray or a Port Jackson shark is not going to be breaching the water for us to get any satellite transfer of information. So I've got about 80 animals that I've tagged here in South Australia, and we have about 70 receivers all up and down the coastline to detect these animals. So here's some of our results for the Port Jackson sharks. This is basically showing us where these animals have spent their time during the monitoring period. So on the left, we have animals that were tagged at Christie's Beach. There's an aggregation of Port Jackson sharks there. And then on the right are animals that were tagged in an area called Long Spit, which is an area sort of a bit more north central of the Gulf of St Vincent. What we found really interesting here is that there wasn't a whole lot of overlap between the individuals at Long Spit and the individuals at Christie's Beach. And also some of the individuals at Christie's Beach would go up into the Port River during the colder months, and then they would come back to Christie's Beach in the warmer months. And we've seen that pattern over a few years now. In contrast, this is our southern eagle race. Again, we've got individuals tagged at Christie's Beach on the left and individuals tagged at Seacliff on the right. And we can see that these individuals are not undertaking very much movement at all. They were really restricted to their areas that they were tagged. The ones at Seacliff, the movement outside of Seacliff there was really only driven by one individual moving around. Some of them were staying within a 2 kilometre squared area for the entire year. So really restricted movements there. So basically these sort of restricted movements can lead these animals to be really quite vulnerable to acute environmental change and acute stress, and that's been very evident during our this current harmful algal bloom that we're experiencing. So I'll talk about that a little bit, but basically there is so many different ways that the bloom and the algae itself can affect these animals. We still don't know exactly what mechanism is happening here to cause all of these sharks and rays to die. And we don't know if there's species that are more heavily affected than other species. So that's currently what we're trying to work out. What we think is the most what we think is the mechanism that is causing the deaths the most is the algae cells causing damage to the gills and the gill cells themselves. We think that the algae itself is sort of clogging those gills and causing that issue. And then we also think that there is some toxicity going on as well. And that would explain some of the strange behaviors that we saw a lot of as well in some sharks and rays, because there can be some neurological effects in there. So that's what we're trying to work out. And it'd be really important to work out if it is a cell-based clogging of the gills, or if it is a toxin-based, or if it's a bit of both, especially because toxins can remain in the environment for a very long time. So that'd be really important to work out. And that's what we're hopefully going to try and do. So I will just show some blurred dissection photos just to emphasize some of the things that we've been doing. So hopefully this isn't too alarming for people. I'll be after this slide. I'll just highlight, yes, the range of different sharks and rays that we have seen. The poor fiddler rays have over 1,800 observations of dead animals, of dead fiddler rays. We don't quite know why these animals are so heavily affected, so much more than all the other animals. So we're really trying to work that out. We've got a lot of them we're trying to dissect. We're seeing a lot of different species. The carpet shark is not a super common species to see, neither is a coffin ray. So it's really affecting quite a lot of species, and even those bigger species that should be able to move away from an acute situation like this. So it could be that even just swimming through the area is having an effect on them to cause their deaths. So for our toxicology testing and our histology testing, basically what we're doing is we're collecting as many different organs as possible. And we're going to be looking at any toxin buildup and also cell damage in those things as well. So these are just some of the animals that we've started dissecting, and we've got about 80 currently thawing at uni that we'll be doing tomorrow. This gummy shark was a really unique specimen as well, pretty much the largest size that species gets to, and she had 30 pups inside of her as well. So while really unfortunate, luckily these are really prolific species. Like Madison said, they reproduce a lot and frequently, so their population should be fine. But it does provide a really unique opportunity to look at how maybe toxins transfer between mother and offspring as well. So that's while really unfortunate, this is providing a lot of great scientific opportunities. Lastly, like Madison said, we had some new rules apply in December for Sharks and Rays. And this was a great effort and such a community-driven effort as well. And we even had some support from the Friends of Gulf St Vincent in helping getting this through as well. So it was really community-driven. It was started by a bunch of passionate community goers that saw unethical things happening to animals during fishing practices. And that basically sort of snowballed into getting these rules into effect. But you'll see that the campaign started in 2022, and the rules didn't come in until over 2 years later. And that's because government and whatnot, there's always sort of hold-ups, and key to getting this through was being patient and open to negotiation and recognizing the values of everyone involved. So understanding that, recreational fishers are not bad people and they're entitled to fish, and how can we come to a common ground on protecting these animals. So Madison did a great job going through this, so I won't touch on it too much more. I'll just mention that the no take of critically endangered species applies to both recreational and commercial fishers, which is really good. And any animal not even listed on this page still has a catch limit of 2 per person as well. So that applies to all animals, and that's great as well because it's not species specific. So if a range extension or new species is found, they'll automatically come under that category. So basically, to conclude, with my research, I've found that Port Jackson sharks and southern eagle rays appear pretty restricted to the Gulf of St Vincent, and the southern eagle rays in particular are really, really range restricted, and that makes them really vulnerable to acute environmental changes. So moving forward to address these things, to help these animals and protect their populations, there's a range of different things that we can all be doing. Like Madison did a great job talking about, learn what rules apply to fishing in the state that you're in. Know every animal that you might come across when you're fishing and how to handle it. And encourage other people to learn as well. A lot of issues that have happened with recreational fishing and other fishing just come from a lack of understanding and awareness, not from malicious intent. So it's really just creating that atmosphere to educate and encourage people to ask questions. If you do see any malpractice or even just any dead animals, you can report that to Fishwatch. And iNaturalist as well, like Madison said, is a great community-driven page that has been really good in documenting all the deaths with the bloom. On a broader scale, climate change is definitely playing a role in this bloom that we've seen, and we'll continue to see environmental disasters as a result of it. So think about that when you're voting in elections, when you're supporting certain companies. Push politicians, push anyone to act on reducing climate change and climate change inducing activities. And that goes for smaller things as well, like environmental degradation, things like coastal developments, positioning of stormwater drains, things like that all have an effect on the environment. Lastly, we can encourage habitat and species protection to safeguard these animals as much as we can and avoid them from being overfished, also protecting their habitats as well. So those are all just a few things that we can do. And I'll leave you all with that. Hopefully you've all learned something. Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe. That was awesome. It was really nice to see. I think Christie's Beach is so unique. I'm actually around Christie's Beach, so it's really nice to see such a unique, area of species and a congregation of those sharks and rays that are there. So, always knew that it was special, but not that special.
It's a great place. We've just extended our tagging to fiddler rays, and we've also done a couple of 7-gill sharks and smooth rays at Christie's Beach as well. It's just very productive area, which is great. It's a lot quieter than some of the other beaches, which is lovely.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, on that note, so I guess we'll open up for questions. Does anyone have any questions for either Chloe or Madison?
Can I just ask Chloe what her prognosis is for the future of these animals? Obviously, the sea cliff pod have been decimated, I think, of southern eagle rays, and what's the chances of any more coming back to, because it's a fairly restricted area, this in the Gulf. So how long before we get any recruitment into the area again?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting thing and question that we're all thinking about at the moment. So with the receiver and the technology, I can only get data when I go and download the receivers, and I just happened to download the receivers right before the bloom hit, and I was still detecting the eagle rays in the area then, but of course I haven't been able to check since then. So we're hopefully going to try and check again soon if we're still detecting them. I haven't had any reports at all of any tagged animal getting being washed up. So, but they could die and they could sink and just not wash in. But they are a least concern species. They do have a really healthy population, even though, they are very range restricted. It seems like there's lots of pockets of them all over the place. And even though in my study, the ones that I did tag were staying in the area pretty much that whole period, we would still see each year new individuals come through. So, for example, when I finished my tagging, I had pretty much tagged every animal, like every ray that I was seeing down at Seacliff. So I wouldn't see an untagged one pretty much at all when I was down there. And then by the next year, you'd see quite a few untagged ones. And then the next year again, more. So it seems like there is immigration coming from somewhere. Okay. We're not sure where. But they are very prolific. Well, not prolific, but they are very common in the Gulf. So hopefully they can bounce back. And a lot of the species that have been affected by the bloom are least concern. We are what's considered a lifeboat country. So a lot of sharks and rays in Australia are least concern, even ones that are vulnerable elsewhere.
Yeah.
So hopefully that means that they have the populations to bounce back. I think it will take a very long time for some of them. But hopefully some will. We're hoping to have a bit of a better look at detections of all of our tagged animals post bloom or during soon, and we'll hopefully get some information out to people if we're still hearing from any of our rays and stuff.
Okay, thanks, Chloe.
Thank you.
I actually have a question for Madison. Madison, you said that the southern dogfish were critically endangered. Have you seen any wash up as a result of the algae bloom? And sort of what are your because if it's already critically endangered, how more endangered are they now?
I haven't had they're a bit of a deeper water species, but I haven't actually had a good look at the iNaturalist mortality records. But yeah, I can't answer that one. I'm sorry. That's just one example. But yeah, there was like those stingarees on as the critically endangered as well. There's a few species of skate on there listed as no take as well. But yeah, and we have seen those wash up and stuff. So yeah, that could, we're only seeing, a fraction of what might actually be dead, unfortunately. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting years to come to see what's actually happened from this.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I think as well, because sharks tend to sink when they die as well. So those deeper ones, they'll just never come up to the surface. So, and unfortunately, those deeper ones are a lot of the critically endangered ones because they are threatened so much by overfishing. So I think, yeah, that will be really hard to determine that impact that it might have had on them. Hopefully, being a deeper water species, maybe it hasn't reached them. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't know. Maybe we might be able to find out with commercial catch rates and finding out a bit more about that when that comes out. But yeah, hopefully.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else for any questions?
Yes, I think I do have one. So I was just wondering for Chloe, how often do you get the data? Is it like every 6 months?
Yeah, so we would like to go every 6 months, but we don't end up doing it. We go every year. They have to be done every year, the receivers, because that's how long the batteries last. Um, so yeah, pretty much every year we go out and get the receivers. It's a long job though, because we have about 70 and they're all up and down the coast and we have to dive for them. So we need good weather. So it's really hard. I'm actually still in the process of getting them right now. So yeah, every year. So basically I get it for the year and I see the last year's detections and then I have to wait a whole year before I can even see what they're doing again. So that's why unfortunately I don't have much to say at the moment about what animals are or aren't being detected during the bloom. But with the bloom happening, we're hoping to fast track that and go and get the receivers sooner so we can check on what animals are being detected sooner rather than later.
Okay. And I was wondering, like, your project, is it for still a few years? Like, will you actually be able to study what happens after the bloom is over?
Yeah, definitely. So the tags, some of them have a lifespan of 10 years, but you need bigger ones to get that lifespan. So the lifespan of the tags range from 3 to 10, determining based on the size of the tag. So some animals we will hopefully be able to detect for the following 10 years. Unless they've died. If they die within near a receiver, we can tell because they are consistently detected on the receiver. But if they move out of the array and die, we can't tell if they've just left the area or died. So yeah, hopefully we will be able to continue to detect animals, and we are also our projects are still ongoing. So we will keep our receivers out indefinitely as long as we've got funding to keep doing so. And like I said, we've just expanded our tagging to include fiddler rays as well. We did luckily start doing that before the bloom. So hopefully they're all still alive, but we'll see when we get our receivers back. We were still detecting them, loads of them right before the bloom, and they were moving around quite a bit by the looks of it. But yeah, we'll hopefully get receivers again soon and see what's going on. And we will also continue to monitor as much as we can.
Okay. And I have one last question. I was just wondering, when it comes to the receivers, do you have to put them every kilometer or do they have a bigger range?
Yeah, so they have a range of anywhere from 250 to a kilometer. And that's because they're acoustic, so they are affected by particles and energy in the ocean. So on a bad day, it will be, not very far. On a good day, it'll be really far. So depending on what we want to look at, depends on how far away we put them. So we've got some at Christie's Beach and Seacliff, for example. We have we have tight clusters of them to see exactly where the animals are in that exact location. And then for areas sort of extending down to like Cape Jervis and stuff, we've got them a lot further apart, like 5Ks apart, because we're not trying to look at we're just trying to see if they're sort of cruising up and down a bit. So it depends on what exactly we're trying to look at. But we try to have as much as the coast covered as possible, with no more than 10Ks between them. But
Okay.
we're only one team trying to get to them all, so it's really hard at the moment. But yeah, we do our best.
Oh, I can imagine. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte. Charlotte, where are you, by the way? It's nice and sunny.
Oh yeah, I'm in Europe
Oh, yeah.
just to see
Okay.
family for a bit. Yeah, so it's the day here.
Yeah, very jealous.
I'm coming back on Sunday, so
Lovely.
not long.
Okay, so we've got a question from Peter. Do you attribute the numerous near-shore shark sightings to the issue of hypoxia?
Yeah, so it definitely could be. I assume we're talking the white shark nearshore sightings because most of the other sharks are common in the nearshore environment anyway. And white sharks can come pretty close to shore quite frequently, but obviously what we have seen has been pretty unusual in the frequency that we've seen it. Those ones earlier a few months ago were, really close to the shore, quite a lot. We don't know exactly why they've done that. It could be, like I said, to the toxicology, the toxins in the brain causing neurological issues. It could definitely also be hypoxia, so the algae can, consume all of the oxygen in the water, and then also make it difficult for light and whatnot to get down to the seagrass and other oxygen producing primary producers. So it can definitely deprive oxygen in the water, and that could also be why they might be in the nearshore environment trying to find more oxygenated water. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't know exactly that mechanism that's happening, and I'm not sure that we will be able to work it out for those animals. For the toxicology testing, we need them to be freshly dead, and none of those white sharks were able to be samples weren't able to be collected in time for toxicology testing. Diagnosing marine deaths is just a really difficult problem, and that's why, especially with those white sharks, there's been a lot of inconclusive results, and it's not through a lack of trying, it's really through it is just really hard to do, but yeah, it's really hard to get the right sample types to test those things. So hopefully with some of the ones that we're doing tomorrow and some of the ones that we did get during the bloom, we'll be able to do some toxicology testing with those ones and maybe work it out. We'll see. We are collecting like brains and stuff as well, so hopefully we can see if there's toxins in there and go from there.
Pretty cool project. Not cool
There's
at
all
the same
sorts
time,
going
but pretty cool. Look, guys, I have one more question from Regan. So Regan's from a few different dive clubs. He was wondering, what can the dive clubs do other than posting pics to iNaturalist? Is there anything that we can collect, photograph? Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely the environment under the water is a bit less catalogued than what we're seeing on the beaches. So any photos of environments under the water is definitely useful. I think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's any because obviously I'm working with the sharks and rays. I'm not sure if there's any work being done on inverts or seagrasses and stuff. I can try and work that out and get back, maybe send you an email, Adele, and you can get out to them, get that message out. But yeah, Madison, do you have any
I mean,
ideas?
anything. I mean, yeah, you guys, we're just, a small group or one person. We don't always get out to these sort of environments all the time. If you're diving and that all the time or out in the water all the time, you can, see changes, more than we can. So, you guys are our eyes and your ears out there. So you're citizen scientists, collecting that data for us. So, anything like iNaturalist, even contact the universities if you find something like this. But yeah, even like, in these types of groups and stuff, there's always people that know people who might find this, what you've come across interesting. And yeah, it doesn't have to be algal bloom related either. Like any of that sort of, you come across a cryptic species or something that can be useful to someone out there, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah,
definitely.
iNaturalist is a great place just to put it out there, definitely.
Yeah. And yeah, just share anything that you're seeing as well. That's been while it's been a horrible event, it has been really nice and inspiring to see how much people have been sort of rallying together for the environment over this catastrophe. So and those firsthand experiences of what you're seeing is really important for people to understand as well. So yeah, definitely just share whatever you have, and reach out to universities if you find something really interesting. And thank you for scoping out places and keeping an eye on the environment.
probably got time for maybe one more small question if someone has a question.
When Chloe was talking about the seagrasses, I hadn't really thought about the impact on seagrasses of the algal bloom. So have you got any information as to how much of the seagrasses have been affected? Have they been killed or what?
Yeah. So there's definitely been a lot of reports from divers and what we're seeing on the beach of a lot of seagrasses dying, a lot of corals and sponges dying as well. There's been some really good there's some divers down at Edithburgh that's just posted some really good sort of side by sides of the degradation down there, and it's really quite a lot. And you might have noticed some beaches have a lot of dead seagrass and wrack all over them at the moment as well. So it seems like we don't have any sort of quantitative, at least that I'm aware of, measures of exactly how much seagrass loss there is, but I think there's definitely sort of a loss of primary producers that we're definitely not understanding the full scale of, and that's also going to have cascading and long-term effects, as we know, with the issues with seagrass restoration over time, and how important those are. And so I think that will definitely have some issues that we're not quite understanding yet.
And just one other quick question. I was just thinking about that young dolphin that they found that they said had died through starvation.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a lot of that happening? I don't know how one would know, but if you have any knowledge of it.
It's hard with the sharks and rays because when they are stressed, they often vomit and regurgitate their food. So often when at least a lot of the ones that we've been finding have had empty stomachs. And that could just be because they regurgitated their food. It might not necessarily be because they starved, but it would be unusual for all of these animals to be dying of starvation as well. So I would wager a guess that if they were, that it's because all the fish have died from the bloom. So I think there's still a correlation there. But I think the rate at which we saw all of these sharks and rays die and the behaviors that we were seeing was definitely a result of the bloom, and I don't think they've really starved. They look, at least the ones we've looked at so far, look okay. They look relatively healthy, like organs, livers and stuff look healthy. So it seems like it was like a really rapid, acute thing, like a toxin or can't breathe in their gills that's caused it.
Okay, thanks very much.
That's okay, thank you.
And thank you for the talk.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Linda. So I just thought we might wrap up. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Chloe and Madison for your insightful talks today. It was really awesome to hear something just really explicit about our sharks and rays along the coast. So thank you. Also want to say a huge thanks to all the participants for coming and obviously making this worthwhile, and a huge thank you to our committee members for obviously putting this together and helping us shape our first webinar. We've also got our website and memberships and the QR code there if anyone wants to scan that. Obviously, that helps. Any memberships help support us in keeping these things going. Please connect to us through Facebook. I did have a LinkedIn, but for some reason it got shut out of LinkedIn. And we also have an upcoming webinar in September. So our webinars will be happening every 2 months, and we're hoping to have a bit of an algal bloom update. It won't be from scratch. That one's to be confirmed. So stay tuned for any of the marketing that's there. But anyway, Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It was really good.